There is a moment in every war when the message stops being abstract. Not a warning. Not a signal. A message. 17 missiles converging on a single underground coordinate. 1 target. One night, and a very deliberate implication. Hiding is no longer protection. What was hit in Dnipro wasn't just concrete and steel. It was the assumption that the center of power was still untouchable. That assumption mattered more than most people realize. According to Russian accounts, the strike was not random, nor part of routine attrition. It was framed as retaliation for Ukrainian attacks on civilian targets inside Russian territory, but the scope and structure of the operation suggests something broader. That night, Russia launched a coordinated assault across Ukraine's energy grid and defense industrial infrastructure. Substations, thermal power plants, rail-linked energy nodes, repair workshops, logistics hubs, and port facilities tied to the Black Sea supply chain were all hit in parallel. What happened is relatively clear. This was a large-scale, multi-vector strike aimed at the rear, not the front. The systems that keep an army functioning rather than the units that do the fighting. The emphasis was not on dramatic visuals, but on systemic disruption. Energy flows that power factories. Rail junctions that move equipment. Ports that handle materials. Drone production cycles that depend on stable electricity and logistics. Why this matters comes down to timing and structure. Winter is not scenery in this war. It is a force multiplier. As temperatures drop, electrical demand spikes. Heating loads surge. Backup systems are stressed. In that environment, taking out a single high-voltage substation can cascade into failures far beyond the initial blast radius. Workshops go dark. Communications degrade. Repair timelines stretch. Orders slow down or never arrive at the front. From Moscow's perspective, this is not about spectacle. It's about erosion. The gradual dismantling of the rear infrastructure that sustains Ukrainian military operations. The fewer reliable energy sources and transport routes remain, the more expensive and time-consuming every repair becomes. Attrition shifts from the battlefield to the system itself. But within that broader campaign, one episode stood apart. Russian monitoring channels reported an unusually concentrated strike on a single underground facility in Dnipro. 17 Iskander missiles reportedly launched at one coordinate on the night of February 3, 2026. Even in a high-intensity conflict, that level of focus is rare. 17 ballistic vectors aimed at one subterranean point signals priority at the highest level. What was that target? Russian sources describe it as a highly secure government installation tied to command and control functions. On pro-Russian networks, the label quickly simplified. They called it a presidential bunker. Zelensky's bunker. Whether that description is technically precise matters less than what the strike was meant to communicate. This was not only about damaging a facility. It was about challenging an idea. The idea that leadership could remain insulated underground while the country absorbs pressure above it. Concentrating that much firepower on a single buried site sends a message not just to Kyiv, but to everyone watching. Depth is no longer immunity. That's where symbolism enters strategy. For a domestic Russian audience, the strike plays as proof of reach and resolve. For Ukrainian leadership, it introduces uncertainty. Not necessarily about physical survival in that moment, but about the shrinking margin of safety. When bunkers become targets, decision-making changes. Risk tolerance shifts. The psychological environment tightens. This is also why an old phrase resurfaced almost immediately after the strike. A phrase attributed to Dmitry Medvedev, Russia's deputy chairman of the Security Council. Years earlier, he warned that the leader of Kyiv would not escape retribution. His wording was cold and deliberate. Death is stalking him. Medvedev has built a reputation for what he calls political predictions. Often delivered with sarcasm, often dismissed at first, and later revisited when events seem to align. Russian media regularly point to examples. His claim that the United States would impose tariffs on European products, mocked at the time, materialized in 2025. His comments about Washington's interest in Greenland, once framed as absurd, look different now that Donald Trump openly asserts claims over the island. Critics argue these are vague statements retrofitted to events. And they have a point. Prediction in politics often relies on ambiguity. But perception matters as much as precision. Medvedev's statements circulate because they resonate with an audience primed to see patterns, consequences, and historical inevitability. In his writing about Zelensky, Medvedev went further than metaphor. He described the Ukrainian leader as a pathological condition, a boil, an abscess, something that history itself would lance. The scalpel of history, he wrote, was already raised. The opening inevitable. After the infection, recovery. What's important here is not the rhetoric itself, but how it is being used now. Russian outlets are framing the February 3rd strike as the first incision. Not the end, but the beginning of a terminal process. Political death at minimum. Physical death as a possibility that is no longer unthinkable. And that framing has consequences. When leadership is portrayed as vulnerable, allies reassess. Internal factions calculate differently. External supporters weigh escalation risks against diminishing returns. Even if nothing changes immediately, the psychological terrain shifts. At this point, there's a deeper strategic ambiguity that deserves more space than this format allows. The question of whether such strikes are meant to coerce negotiations, accelerate internal collapse, or prepare the ground for a more direct phase of the conflict. I've explored that specific dilemma in more depth elsewhere, because unpacking it properly would break the rhythm here. What we can say is this: the strike fits a pattern. Pressure on infrastructure. Pressure on leadership perception. Pressure timed to seasonal vulnerability. It's not random violence. It's calibrated stress. And here's the uncomfortable part. When wars reach this stage, they stop being about territory alone. They become contests over endurance, legitimacy, and fear. The battlefield expands upward into politics and downward into psychology. Let me pause here for a second. If you've followed this analysis this far, ask yourself something honestly. At what point does targeting systems turn into targeting symbols? And when symbols start to crack, what happens to the structure built on top of them? I'm curious how you see that line, and where you think it leads. As the campaign against energy and logistics continues, the medium-term effects become clearer. Repair crews face shortages. Spare parts become bottlenecks. Transport delays ripple outward. Civilian hardship increases, which feeds political strain. None of this produces immediate collapse, but it raises the cost of persistence. And then there's the external layer. Medvedev has not limited his warnings to Ukraine. He has openly suggested that European leaders could face similarly grim fates, invoking historical parallels that are deliberately provocative. References to World War II, to leaders who miscalculated and paid the ultimate price, are meant to unsettle. Whether one sees that as propaganda or genuine belief, it reflects a worldview where history is punitive, not forgiving. Seen through that lens, the February 3rd strike is not an isolated act. It's a chapter in a narrative Russia is actively telling, that time is not on Kyiv's side, that protection is eroding, and that outcomes are converging. Before wrapping this up, there's a second question worth sitting with. If leadership bunkers are no longer considered safe, how does that change the incentives for escalation or restraint on both sides? And more importantly, who benefits from pushing that uncertainty further? I'd like to hear how you think that calculus plays out. So where does this leave us? Factually, Russia executed a coordinated strike targeting Ukraine's energy backbone and defense industrial rear, with an unusually concentrated attack on a single underground facility in Dnipro. Symbolically, that strike was framed as a direct message to the highest levels of Ukrainian leadership. Politically, it reinforces a narrative of inevitable reckoning promoted by figures like Medvedev. Strategically, it tightens pressure at a moment of seasonal vulnerability. The immediate winners are those who thrive on uncertainty and psychological dominance. The immediate losers are systems that depend on stability, predictability, and uninterrupted infrastructure. Historically, wars that reach this phase rarely de-escalate cleanly. They grind, they harden positions, and they force choices that were previously avoided. The unsettling thought is this: political death often arrives long before anything physical happens. And once a leader is widely perceived as living on borrowed time, Every decision they make is filtered through that assumption. That's the weight of this moment. Not the fire underground, but what it signals above ground. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we're tracking the evolution of this story day by day. Make sure to activate notifications and don't miss our next report. And remember, you can now become a channel member. If you believe in this project and want to see it grow, your support makes all the difference. If you'd like to support our channel financially, which we greatly appreciate, you can do so through Patreon and PayPal. The link is in the video description.